Good evening, and I am so thrilled to be able to come back to Western, to be able to share my new novel, Diamonds at Dawn, and it is the sequel to Diamonds at Dusk. Diamonds at Dusk is my debut novel that came out in 2016. And it was well received. I was a finalist in the Arizona, New Mexico Book Awards for that one. And Diamonds at Dusk was just released in March. And like I say, it's the sequel, or Diamonds at Dawn is the sequel to Diamonds at Dusk. I thought I would start today, since Diamonds at Dusk is sort of the beginning of this story. I thought I would start with reading a little bit from Diamonds at Dusk to give you guys a little bit of context. I started writing to begin with because I got inspired actually by standing in the Mimbres Valley at my daughter's bus stop. And, I was waiting for her to come back from school. She was in elementary school at the time, and I saw the bookmobile come by. And I'm a huge fan of young adult literature, and I realized that everything that I read was urban focused, and so a lot of our main characters were in New York City, and I thought, but that's not the whole teen experience. There are teens who live in urban and rural settings, and so I thought it would be really fun to develop young adult literature that is very place-based and about southwestern New Mexico to reflect that rural experience. I'll start with a little bit from Diamonds at Dusk. Oh, thank you. Cassie, Grandpa Norm calls out from his bedroom as soon as he hears a screen door slam. My shirt, hair, and pants are plastered to my skin. I wriggle out of my mud-caked riding boots. "I'll be there in a minute, Grandpa. I'm soaked," I call back. Grandma Alice turns from peeling fresh roasted green chili to assess my condition. "You better get changed." "Cassie," Grandpa bellows again. "Hold your horses, Norm. She's gotta get dry," Grandma answers. Grandpa mumbles something loud enough for us to hear, but not loud enough to argue. "He knows you don't cross, Grandma." I hurry into my room to change. If Grandma wasn't there for me, I'd be sunk. I've been living with them since day one. Mom was a mess when she had me. Methamphetamines, even way out here, are too easy to find and way too easy to get addicted to. Daddy loved iron horses and went to every motorcycle bar in the state. One night he met Mom, and she convinced him to try a little ice. He never turned back. One time and he was hooked. And somewhere in that mess, I was conceived. Mom did manage to keep clean a few months at a time when she was pregnant with me, but Daddy never. His addiction was all day, every day. After I was born, Grandma took me home. I've been here ever since. It'll be 16 years next week. So in my own teaching practice, I often notice that because of a lot of different choices that parents are making, today students or the younger generation is being raised by their grandparents. And so I wanted to weave that thread into the story. All of my characters are actually based on real people and real experiences, and I like that because I know that these people actually can exist. And it helps me with my reading because I can visualize them pretty well. So the trouble for Cassie in this story is that she, on her 16th birthday, has developed a crush on one of her childhood friends. So as rural kids know, you usually become friends with a few kids in kindergarten, and then they're your friends for life. In Cassie's case, she develops a crush on this boy, Chad, who has been coming to visit her on the ranch for her entire life, and they are summer childhood friends. And so, let's see what happens to her when she goes out to do her chores. flake of alfalfa for each of the horses in separate corners of the corral. As Cinnamon eats, I groom the dried mud off her. I have to start with her. She gets jealous if you work on Bo first. The metal curry comb frees the clumps from her hide. She twitches in pleasure. Hey, Cassie, Chad says. His voice makes me jump a mile. All through dinner, I couldn't get him out of my mind. I played and replayed how he looked after the race. I kept wondering what he was about to say before Auggie and I came, and I wondered what they did after I left. For the first time, I feel nervous around him, like everything I do or say determines something big. He looks like he's been standing there a while. Need some help? I look up at him in double disbelief. I can't believe he's here, and why would I need his help? Bo and Cinnamon are my life. I mean, I can take care of Bo while I'm here, he says. Yeah, sure. There's another comb in his stall, I say vaguely, pointing in the right direction. I hide behind Cinnamon's sleek body and pray for a normal pulse rate. Then I pray even harder for the red rising in my cheeks to quit. Why does he have to look so beautiful? It's distracting. I can't get out a simple sentence without feeling like I have to steady my voice. He comes back with the comb, and instead of going straight for Bo, he stops and grooms Cinnamon's other side. Her skin tingles and quakes beneath both of our combs, like it might be a little bit too much attention. I know how she feels. We go on brushing her with this weird but good weird silence between us. I have to think of something to say. The sun is going down, casting this golden glow over the whole place. My birthday's next week, I say. Are you gonna be around? I hope that sounded casual and not like I'd die if you didn't show, because for some reason, that's how I feel. I focus on finishing Cinnamon. The seconds drag and drag some more. And then it happens. I reach for the top of her tail, and he does too. For a brief moment, we touch hands. This jolt of electricity races through my fingers. I pull back, hoping against hope that I wasn't too quick. Then, because praying for me to shake the jitterbugs isn't working, I open my palm and rest it flat against Cinnamon. She has a way of soothing me through anything. Yeah, I'll be there. Dad says we don't have to leave for at least a week. This year, school starts later. No way. Seriously? Seriously? I pop up my head up and rest my chin on Cinnamon's back. I know I have a stupid grin on my face because I can never contain myself. Yes, Cassie, I'll be here. Then he seals the deal with the cutest smile ever. So the rest of the action of this book is taken up by a treasure hunt, because what happens is Chad breaks his promise and he doesn't actually stay for her birthday. So he sets up a treasure hunt that takes Cassie and her best friend Auggie riding through the ranch to resolve all of the clues. And in the course of resolving those clues, they run into more danger and another handsome boy, which then of course sets up a love triangle and lots of danger, adventure, and romance. So that's how that story goes. So these are all written in first person, and so we only really get the thoughts and feelings of our main character. But what happens in the course of telling the story is that the reader begins to notice that Cassie's best friend Auggie is silent a lot of the time, and she doesn't have that bouncy attitude that Cassie does. There's something that troubles Auggie a lot, and so we don't really understand what that is until Diamonds at Dawn. And so this story explains that and digs deeper into this character. So this story is very different in structure to Diamonds at Dusk. Diamonds at Dusk, because you're an adult audience, I'll tell you, is a plot-driven story. And this story is a character-driven story. So a plot-driven story is going to be, resolving these clues and trying to get, to the end of this treasure hunt. The character-driven story is getting to the bottom of why it is that Auggie is so silent and what is it that is going on behind the scenes. So I started playing with a different format where this book is a mix of poetry and prose. And so the poems are on the facing pages to the chapters. They start each chapter. The poems are Auggie's interior thoughts, and it's what's going on inside of her mind and why it is that she's troubled. And then the prose is the current action. So in this story, actually I'll read the first poem for you, and you can come to understand why it is that Auggie is so interior most of the time. On the darkest day of the year, the sun rose reluctantly, but Alma didn't. She lay curled around me, while Siche gently unfolded me from her arms. Wrapped in a blanket on the front porch, on watch in the silent snow, I was certain that time had stopped. The sky and the earth had merged into one cold sphere. Then the crystals began to fall, and I learned that day that time stops for no one. The men came to take her body away, and long after they left, Siche stood in the doorway, tears chasing crystals that no one could catch. So Auggie is Navajo. Alma means mother, Siche means grandfather. When Auggie is 9 years old, she loses her mother to uranium poisoning, which uranium is unfortunately found in a lot of water in the Navajo Nation, and it is something that can happen to you. They can become poisoned and die. And so when she's 9 years old, she loses her mom. Her dad, she has never known. And so she is left with her Siche. I'll read to you a little bit about all the moment that she knows about her dad. This is an interaction that she has with her mom. Again, it's another one of the poems. These poems are both her memories with her mom and conversations that she continues with her mom from the age of 9 through to the age of 18. So this is all she really knows about her dad. Auggie, are you awake? Yes, Alma. Do you want to meet him? Who? No one, she said all of a sudden. And then she said, no, I shouldn't say that. It's someone. Special, she said, because he's part of you. We took her white pickup down the red dirt road. We turned where we always do, into the Chinley Shell Station, and waited. He never showed. She didn't make an excuse. We sat in the cab. The sun warmed us through the cracked windshield, while the radio played I Fall to Pieces, and the cottontails chased each other through the sage. So, in a sense, what happens for Auggie is she feels abandoned twice. She never understands who her father is. Her mother, reaches out to her father, tries to make an arrangement so that they can at least meet, and he doesn't show. And so she never knows her father. She does get to know her, or get to be with her grandpa. Her grandpa is the main adult in her life. But as a child, grandpa hasn't always been the steadiest person either. And so this poem talks about that memory. Alma and I didn't talk much about Siche and the bottles until sometimes he couldn't find his way home. We didn't talk about how he'd stare into the fire, tears streaming down his face, until he slept in place and woke in a cold sweat as if saving himself from drowning. And then there were the meetings. Hello, my name is, and the stories, cups of tea, sweet and spicy, built the man who became my home. So that, records that he struggled with alcohol addiction and then recovery. And so then Siche does become a nice steady presence in his life. There's in Augie's life. And there's something about the death of her mother that allows him the space to do that and almost prove himself to her. And so now I'll read to you a little bit. I'll read to you from the first chapter so that you can get a sense of what the prose is like and what some of the current action is like in here. Auggie is struggling with two contrasting issues. One is grieving the death of her mother, and the second is that she is falling in love now. And in this story, she is on the verge of her 18th birthday, just like Cassie was on the verge of her 16th. So, December 21st, the dark season. My grandpa, my Siche, is worried about me. Early this morning, I felt the recurring wall of heat pressed up against my cheeks, warming my purple velvet skirt and blouse and the sterling silver squash blossom necklace. So that when he picked me up in his arms, the rich fabric and precious metal imprinted my mother's death on my skin. And then I awoke in my 17-year-old skin, wrapped in a goose-down comforter, Navajo blanket, and the stillness that follows a snowstorm. The heady scent of cinnamon tea fills the air. Siche never shows that he's worried. I can tell by what he doesn't do. I don't hear the rhythmic rocking of his chair, nor the paper ripple as he turns each page of the Navajo Times. And in the silence that is his uncertainty, I feel helpless. I can't shake the feeling of the flames on my skin that year after year, on the eve of winter solstice, haunt my dreams. And I have a crush, but it's more than that. The hardest part of all of this is the silence. In Navajo land, I can't talk about my mom because the elders say that kind of talk will interrupt her journey to the other side. But I live here in southwestern New Mexico, far from the res and just about everything else. Here where the rattlesnakes sun themselves on the road in late August and deer come right up to you because they don't know any better, this should be the place where memories take shape and the whole horizon opens up. And then there's the crush. I can't tell Siche because what girl in her right mind from anywhere on earth would do that? And I can't tell my best friend Cassie because, well, I just can't. The sun is up, and so am I. I pull on my snow leopard print robe and shield my eyes from the glare, bouncing rainbows off crystallized mounds, blanketing fairy rings, deer beds, and quail runs in white. That's when I see a page from my journal, caught in the wire surrounding Yaz's corral. I pull on my roping boots and make a grand but swift entrance into the living room. Morning, Siche! And I head out the front door. Dressed in his tribal print PJs and his Dallas Cowboys robe, Siche glances up from his tea long enough to realize he needs a double take. If he was a regular run-of-the-mill grandpa, right about now I'd get a first and last name treatment, a good clan calling out, followed by pointed questions leading to self-reflection and personal growth. Like this. Auggie Todlina of the Sagebrush Hill clan, born to the Bitterwater clan, where are you going dressed like that? But he's not. He's my Siche, and he doesn't say anything. I pull the front door closed behind me, and the screen door slaps shut. Yaz saunters out of his barn and into his corral as soon as he hears me coming. He whinnies in greeting, shakes his head, and lets a shiver run across his thick, white winter coat. Good morning, boy, I whisper as I press my cheek up against his, enjoying the depth of his fur. I pull back. He looks me over, telling me that a bathrobe and ropers is not proper riding attire, not to mention my long black hair that is currently in a tangle. I know, but it's urgent. I walk around to where the fence wire meets the rough-hewn barn and pull the journal page into the safety of my pocket. Aren't you a little underdressed for a ride? My heart slams against my ribcage. I don't know why I should be surprised to see Maverick Britton. He shows up almost every Saturday morning, looking, as Cassie says, devastatingly gorgeous, and with some excuse to help Siche. Cassie Jennings is my best friend and newest member into the ranks of the flirting, so she has a tendency to exaggerate, but this morning, I'd say she's spot on. Maverick takes the 19-year-old bad boy look to the extreme with his black jeans, black Carhartt jacket, and black felt cowboy hat, and I like it. I stand up to my full height, look into his warm brown eyes, and prepare to say something devastatingly smart. All that comes out is, yeah, right, which is just about the most generic, one-size-fits-all comeback a girl can say. There's something about his wild blonde hair, broad shoulders, tan complexion, even in December, and tapered waist that loses a girl in thought. I turn and pull the robe closer, aware that the short skirt of it offers little protection against the elements and his curiosity. Grateful for the boots that come past midway on my calves, I walk back to the house through the 8 inches of fresh powder. Dangerous. Cassie nailed it the first time. Maverick is dangerous. So that gives you a sense of the romance, the tension. So throughout the story, in this case, in Diamonds at Dawn, as you can tell probably from when I was talking about the first story, I always weave in something about the environment, because here, you know, as rural dwellers, it's so much a part of our lives. And the focus in Diamonds at Dusk is really, there's a focus on issues with mining and how people's lust for gold or other precious metals can take away from their appreciation of the land as a whole. And in Diamonds at Dawn, the focus is trapping. So in this story, the adventure or danger comes about when Auggie starts to doubt Chad, who you met in the first book. He's the fair weather friend, but he has actually come down to the ranch. Maverick is in trouble, and then Auggie starts to feel like, I don't know who I can trust anymore. People are trapping animals all around us. They're doing it for profit, and I'm not sure even who my friends are right now. So this is a chapter that deals a little bit with that and some of her feelings around that. Siche, I say, coming into the living room, the strength and safety of the earth and adobe walls and the softened stillness of my grandpa soothe me. He's fallen asleep in the warmth of the mid-morning sun that shines through the windows. I hate to disturb him, but I have no choice. I slip out of my snow boots, hang my jacket on the back of the door, and cross the saltillo tile into the warm circle radiating from the stove. Siche has pinto beans, salt, and green chili from the summer's harvest simmering in a pot on the fire. I know, Auggie, he says, his eyes still closed against this world. I know. I heard the cry. How does he know? You know it was Chad? Chad, he says, sitting up some. What are you talking about? His eyes flutter some, but remain closed. He took her, Grandpa, for money. Nadoshte? Yes, Grandpa, mountain lion. No, he says, casting doubt on everything I saw. No, I saw him with my own eyes, I argue. And then I pull back, showing respect. The eyes don't always see the truth, he says. Listen to your heart. Tears form in my eyes, thinking of how I trusted Chad and laughed with him. Then I see the blood-stained fur flashing golden in the sunlight emerging from the clouds. She was the one who watched us in the canyon that day. Her dark diamond gives her away. It doesn't get any more real than that, Grandpa, I say, sinking down to the floor at the footrest of his chair. Feeling suddenly small and powerless, I lean against his leg. He reaches out to stroke my hair. I'm sorry, girl, is all he can say. I'm sorry. I bury my face in the leg of his jeans and soak the knee with tears that won't stop. Quiet now, girl, he says. Remember that everything will be as it should. Sometimes we don't understand the Creator's plan, and that's why we're humbled by being part of the great mystery. His words reach past the present through the morning snow, iron blood, and my own skin. His hands, big and warm, soothe my tangled hair, inviting peace in a torrent of grief. Tears fall, freshets of salt and elemental agony. Heartbreak rises, released in animal tones. Siche steadies me and waits. Exhausted, eyes swollen shut, body wrung out, I crawl into bed, sinking down beneath the goose feathers of my comforter and the fine weave of my mother's woolen story blanket. I retreat from the world that refuses to make sense. In the restless moments before sleep, flashes of the blood on Chad's hands, the unforgiving concrete that surrounds Maverick, and the dark shadow over Cassie's truth-filled eyes saturate my thoughts. Then I must have let it all go. So at that point in the story, Maverick is actually in jail. I won't tell you how, because that's spoilers. And Chad is out cleaning the traps, and Auggie has seen him cleaning the traps, and that he has his mountain lion pelt, and she's pretty sure it's the mountain lion that they saw earlier in a scene where they were out on horseback rides. So that's why she's devastated and betrayed. She doesn't know who to trust anymore, which is, of course, the heart of all dangerous adventure stories. Questions? Do you guys have any questions, or?
How, you were just talking about weaving in some of the environmental issues. Do you do much research on those things, or do you just kind of take it at a sort of layman's?
I do a lot of research, actually. So all of my characters, no matter what background they come from, I do a lot of research on the characters themselves, and then the storylines I also do a lot of research on as well. And so sometimes it takes me a really long time just to write a page, because I'm like, oh, I don't know enough about this, or how do you say this in Navajo, or how does this issue pan out, or how is it that a trapper actually entices an animal into a trap, or all of these different things. And then some of it is practical knowledge. I have a former student's dad who is a trapper, and that's how I first got the idea. On his property, he had a coyote in a cage, in a very small cage, that had a ramp coming down from it, and he was collecting coyote urine, and I didn't know why, and so I asked him about it, and he started to explain that that's how he entices animals. So that's how he entices coyotes. So it's pretty interesting, and he traps for profit. So he said, I asked him how much he makes, and he said he makes about $50,000 a year. So wow, yeah, big profit. Yeah.
So in your teaching, do you have your students read your books?
I've had one, when this book came out, my students were curious about it, so then I bought a class set and we read it together. But I don't, I change my reading lists all the time, and so I don't always do it. I don't do it every year. I also teach in Boston at Phillips Academy in the summer, and in the last 4 years I've taught an ESL course, and in that class we've also studied diamonds at Dusk. I've tried working with other texts. This one is fun to work with because it's older interest, but the vocabulary is still, for the most part, low enough that a student can access it. The vocabulary is probably a little bit higher in this one than in this one, but it tends to work out pretty well. Yeah.
So who's on the cover of your newest book? Is that Cassie?
Yeah, so this is Augie's character, yeah. And the actual person, the model for this cover is my son's girlfriend. So the first time that I met her, she walked in the door and I was like, my main character just walked into my house. That is so cool. And so my son is a great photographer, and I asked him to do a photo shoot with her, and so she's featured here, and then there's also a photo on the back cover. And then if you follow me on Instagram, I have other photos from that photo shoot, and so sometimes I post those with quotes from the book, and so that's been really fun. My son is actually currently creating a book trailer for me for this book, so it's much like a movie trailer, so he's having a good time with that. He just graduated from Sierra Nevada College, in marketing, actually. So I was like, hey, I got a job for you, buddy. So he's having fun with that, and I asked him to make a book trailer for this one first, and then I'll ask him next to make a book trailer for this one. So it's good fun. And then the photos on this book cover, the designer is a designer that my publisher hired, but the photos that are featured on here are my daughter's photos. So this photo is actually taken at dawn, and it's taken at the City of Rocks at dawn.
That's cool.
And she was actually on a school trip with our school when she took that photo, because they every morning on that trip they go and watch the sunrise, and so she took the photo, and it's gorgeous. It's like all pink, and mostly pinks and some blues that are running through there. Then this flower is from our yard in the Mimbres Valley, and then this horse lives across the road from us, and this horse is the horse that I patterned the horse Cinnamon after in here, but her real name is Valley Girl, and she's so cute. She's like, she's very
There's
old
a whole
now.
story in the cover.
But yeah, there is. She's pretty old now. I think she's 38, which is really old for a horse. I mean, it's incredible. And so she kind of like raised my kids in a way. Like she'd come out of her pen and come over and mow the lawn. You know, like she would just be on the lawn chomping away. We'd be like, oh, it's Valley Girl. You know. So they have a really sweet relationship with her. She's an Arabian, and so that's why it's all based on her. Yeah, it's fun. That's why I say it's like knitting, because it's knitting all of these, you know, threads of things that you pick up along the way. In my writing group, we call it glimmers. It's like where either a word or phrase or an image just appeals to you, and you want to pull it into your writing, and so that's fun. Some of us keep glimmer journals, you know, like write that down. You know, like the other day I noticed how the snail trails actually sparkle. Like if you, you know, you think, okay, here's this like ugly, kind of squishy animal. Really, honestly, they're ugly and squishy. And then, but then it's like, they leave behind sparkle. Like how cool is that, you know? And I'm always fascinated by contrast like that. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So I write that down. Who knows if I'll ever use it? Yeah.
You're a great verbal storyteller.
Oh.
So you really, I want you to read me the book.
I read you the whole book. Well, it would be fun to make audio of them,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
It would be
Especially
really
for
fun.
long rides, like
Yes, yeah.
through the Southwest.
Yeah, I know, it would be really fun through the Southwest, especially because there's a lot of scenes in here where they're like riding, you know, like riding down the road or riding, you know, through open plain or whatever, and it's like, you can imagine that in your car.
And smell the green chili.
Absolutely.
And smell the green chili, yeah. And I like to weave it all in there. As you heard, it's like food is such a part of it, what we grow here, what the scenery is like. Because I realize when I travel other places, people aren't as lucky as we are. Like, they don't have that experience, you know, and when I go other places, I miss home. I miss green chili enchiladas.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I can't wait for our daughter to read them,
Are you gonna read them
and
out there?
we'll read
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. You can read them out loud.
Yeah.
They are actually kind of
Not
designed
with
to be
as
read
much
out loud.
zest. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. I
Yeah,
really
thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much. And then